Welcome to Chapter 7 of InnoBuzz's online marketing course. We're going to be looking at analytics in this chapter, and boy, are analytics important. So, our standard agenda, we're going to look at an introduction first. We're going to look at Google Analytics, Clicky, then tools and testing, and then finally we're going to have a short little talk about multi-channel integration. Now, why do I like web analytics so much? Well, no big surprise here. A big key throughout this entire course has been the importance of testing. Analytics are what gives us that power. The big flaw in traditional marketing schemes or in traditional marketing communications has been the uncertainty. If we launch this TV ad and this newspaper ad and we work on our brand and we put a big sign up on our building, does any of that actually work? Is a great question, and even the most mathematically advanced people have a really hard time calculating that. With web analytics, everything that happens online can be mapped, literally everything. So you can discover exactly how your users utilize your website. Finally, for marketers, it's a way to gather all of the marketing information we could ever possibly need to analyze. Of course, this does come with a bit of a downside, because firms now have to deal with having all this information, and a lot of them just don't quite know what to do with it. So why should you even bother paying attention to this? Well, I recently finished consulting for a firm that suspected they had numerous inefficiencies on their site, but they couldn't quite pin them down. It was just a suspect. They'd taken a quick look at the data, seen some things, thought maybe I'm not converting as highly as I should be, but they really weren't sure. So I took a look at their Google Analytics account, and I immediately saw weak spots on the pages of the website. And when I mean weak spots, I mean pages, important pages, that had traffic funneling out of them. I mean, there was no real flow. The homepage had a huge, way higher than it should have been, just people come to it and then click away. And you fight to get people to your homepage. That should be the place that gets people looking at more information, not just leaving. So I looked at all this data, figured out the weak spots to his overall metrics. He implemented them and is continuing to do so. And hey, his profitability is improving. Users are finding his site more user-friendly and it's better overall. And that's all purely from analytics. And that's why you want to pay attention to them. It is actually extremely important. So when we're looking at analytics, what are you going to want to pay attention to? Well, just like all business, you're going to have key performance indicators. And I've identified 6 of the ones that I think are probably going to be about the most important here. There's your bounce and exit rate, conversions, the time spent on page, advertising and e-commerce metrics, and in-page analytics. So let's go through each of those individually. Your bounce rate is the percentage of people who come to your website and then go away from your website. That's it. Your exit rate is exactly that, the percentage of people exiting your website. Exit rate is traditionally used on pages. So if you have pages with high exit rate, that would mean that people had been to other pages on your website and then they left on that page. It's not quite the same as bounce rate, although they are rather similar. This confuses a lot of people. If even after this explanation you're still looking at that and you're like, well, I don't really get it. They both have to do with people leaving versus people, so I don't get it. A bounce is an insta-leave. An exit rate is just them leaving. Okay? That is the big difference between the two. Conversions, of course, being critical. The time spent on page is critically important to content providers or for established companies who have put thousands upon thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, in developing their sites and their content and getting those fancy videos. If you look at your time on your page and it's like 10 seconds, something's wrong with whatever your key landing pages are. Of course, there's standard advertising e-commerce metrics like how much money you're making, your CTR, all that good stuff. And then finally, in-page analytics, which allow you to actually take a heat map of your website on where your customers are clicking. So it literally allows you to put a map of percentages over your website and see where the traffic is going. This is great to do on your homepage and your landing pages in particular. Running these in-page analytics It really can save your optimization strategy. So let's look at some applications because, well, there's no point in having data if we don't actually use it. So application number one, you have a content-rich site, but you realize your bounce rate is extraordinarily high on your homepage. What do you do? Okay, well, if your site is full of content, but people are coming and then instantly leaving without checking anything else out, you have a problem. It'll be probably in your traffic sources. It'll be in the way your site is marketed. Like, let's say that you're getting 100% of your traffic through Google, unlikely, and it's all going directly to your homepage, and you pull up your Google search results, and it says a message that, or you pull up your site in Google just to see what your metadata is displaying, as we discussed in the SEO chapter, and it says, hey, this site is about cheap laptops, but really this is about cribs in the description. Well, hey, that could be one reason. It could be because your homepage sucks. It happens. Some companies just don't have clear landing pages and clear home pages, and very often your homepage is, keep in mind, your landing page. You know, you have to have your title of your website. You need to have a tagline that communicates what your site is going on about. It could be that you are just simply missing basic internet optimization techniques, and that's okay. Those are just things that can happen when we look in the data and we see critically high or a very high bounce rate on our homepage. Those are just some of the reasons. Could be misalignment with your traffic sources. It could be because your homepage isn't optimized to accept even targeted leads. It could also be because your design sucks. Like if you were back in 1995 using HTML 2.0, when we're all the way up on PHP and JavaScript and nice things that flow and look really nice, and you know, you look and your site's tiny and squeezed over on the left, whereas everyone else has moved to the center, and formats that work with bigger monitors that we now have, then, well, you are going to be missing out a little bit. That's not great. So if you see that critically high homepage exit rate, those could be some of the potential reasons why. Another example. Looking at your KPIs, you have identified a page on your site that generates lots of traffic, but also has critically high exit rates. You realize this page is not generating you any revenue at all and is, in fact, utterly worthless. What do we do here? Okay. The site generates us traffic, but it doesn't give us any money, so it exists purely for no reason. This can happen if you've chosen an optimization strategy of building a blog, for instance, to get more traffic, but your blog posts are super, super specific, and they would address a question that someone immediately has, like, where do I buy cheap laptops from? And you've got a whole post on that. They'll say, great, fantastic, and then head off because you failed to say that you are a place to buy cheap laptops. So there's two things you can do. One, have you overlooked that? Are you missing something such as, wait, we provide this service, and for that matter, why are you writing about stuff that would direct customers to your competitors? That doesn't make sense. In this specific example, you would want to avoid doing that, but you would also want to make sure that you did have that, hey, we sell cheap laptops, click here to go to our store. If you're missing that, that would be something to implement. But sometimes it's just, it gets you traffic, but it is really just a worthless page. It in no way ties in, so should you delete it? No, I don't think so. You got that traffic coming to your website. Do something with it. If you cannot convert any of those people into actual buyers, put ads on it. I'm serious. Put ads on that page. Don't necessarily put ads to your competitors, but put related ones. Like if you sold cheap laptops but not accessories, I would be totally comfortable putting links to sites that only sell laptop accessories. You're diverting traffic in a way that you're diverting traffic to something that specific traffic might be interested in, but you're not hurting your own sales, and it is utterly worthless. You cannot bring them back. You've tried all that. You can put ads on your page. This is why we look at the data, because we can't utilize these strategies until we know what's happening with our websites. Easy breezy. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Google Analytics. Google Analytics is the program that I personally use to look at data. And the reason I do is because I find the service is incredibly comprehensive. It's literally has every feature you could ever need and probably tons that you won't. It's easy to use, it's very robust, and they keep updating it and making it better continuously, which I really do appreciate. So, when you go to set up a Google Analytics, you need a Google account, so register one of those if you don't have one. You need to register your website. You need to install the tracking code that they'll give you into the footer of your website, and then you need to wait a little bit for the data to be incoming. So what does all this mean? A little more explanation before I show you a little brief demo page. One, you do need to register your site. It just tells them, it all works the exact same way as AdSense does, in the sense of you're going to fill out information and get code. Now that code is linked specifically to your website, so it makes sense, you've got to register your site. You're then going to install that tracking code onto every single page on your site, preferably in the footer and not the header. Why do you do this? And is this really as big of a pain as it sounds like it is? Yes, for some companies it is. If you have a site that has hundreds of thousands of pages and you have no automated way of doing this, yeah, it's going to be pretty terrible. You'll definitely want to talk to your web developers about how realistic this is if you're not running analytics, which would be very surprising. But if you're not, and you're a giant established company with sites that in depth, definitely talk to your web developers. They will be able to help you out. For everybody else, it's actually pretty easy because most sites are rather small. And if you're running a CMS like WordPress, then there are plugins that you can get that make it super incredibly simple. You would just install a plugin, put your tracking code into the settings in the plugin, and presto, it's done and good to go. That is the way I generally prefer to do it, just because it's that much easier. And actually, we haven't talked much about CMS's content management systems in this course. Programs like WordPress, if you're a small or a solo entrepreneur, a small business or solo entrepreneur, and you're just looking at getting a website set up, look into WordPress, wordpress.org. It's a free service. It really makes your life so incredibly easy. You don't need to know code. If you do, you can greatly expand the capabilities of it. But if you're someone who just comes in and you're like, man, I just want a website, look into wordpress.org. You can find a guide on YouTube or just a text guide online about how to set up a website. It is incredibly easy nowadays. And if you have the drive to look into it, can do, not hard. You can save yourself some cash by doing it yourself. Of course, hiring someone to do it for you will ultimately always result in a better, more comprehensive product. So when we go to create a Google Analytics, or to get Google Analytics working on our website, we're going to log in to the account, and we're going to click on Admin, which is new. So if you're using a previous or if you're used to using a previous version of Google Analytics, it wasn't always like this. So now things are done in the admin panel. In Admin panel, you go to Properties, and there'll be a little icon right here that says Create New Property. You would click on it, fill out all your information here, hit Create Property. Google will then, just like with AdSense, bring up a code for you. And you'll take that code, paste it into the footer of your website, and call it good. And speaking of which, I need to tell you why you want to put it in your footer and not in the header, since some people listening to this course will undoubtedly be curious about that. First, I guess I should explain what those two things are. The header of your website is the top part of your code. So when you first go to a web page, actually, I will bring that up for you real quick. Boom. Okay, so this is for Craigsman.com, the site that I've shown you a couple of times through this course. This is your header, and it even says close head, so we know exactly where it is. This is all it. So we've got our meta information, our link information, scripts information here, calling JavaScript in. Done. That's your head. Now the reason you don't want to put information in your header is because this loads first, then your main content and CSS loads, and then last but not least, your footer loads. Okay, after body. Sorry, that is not quite correct. Here we see down here at the bottom of the page in the footer, but still included in body and certainly in HTML. So here we have, hey, our script's running. And look, I believe this is my Google Analytics account script. believe. Yep, done. Okay, so the reason that you put it in the footer is because this loads first, then this, and then this. And it takes time to load this additional code. You might not think it, and we haven't looked at this data in this course, but page load time makes a giant difference to how long people stay on your website. And more data keeps coming out about this. And what we're seeing is that if your site loads instantly or close to instantly, you get a substantial amount more traffic than if your site takes 5 seconds to load. You have huge exit rates that occur because people don't want to wait. It takes too long. They're not interested. So you want to put this script at the bottom so that it loads last, not first. That's actually pretty important. So everything we've looked at so far has been just standardized reporting and everything that we've talked about. Google Analytics allows you to do something called custom reporting, which is a more advanced reporting feature that allows you to dig even deeper into your data. You can accomplish advanced reporting tasks such as conversion by time of day, unique visitors by page, top converting landing pages, which is all pretty useful stuff. Now, some of it can be a little bit complicated to set up. So this would be, you can either actually, here's something cool, you can actually download these packs from the internet. You can just do a quick search for what you're looking for. So if you're looking for conversion by time of day, Google Analytics custom reporting, you would actually be able to find a download pack for that to load it straight into your analytics package, and presto, that information will just automatically be coming in. Because these can be a little bit complicated to set up, this would not be a feature for basic users. And filters allow you to manipulate incoming data exactly the way filters filter things. It allows you to include or exclude certain information. So you can include or exclude traffic from domains, IP addresses, or to subdirectories. So what does all this mean? Okay, let's say that you have created a brand new website, and it's really critical that you don't, this website wasn't created for mass amounts of traffic. You're counting on getting about a few hundred targeted leads to your site a month. Okay? Now you go to this site every day and you check it out, and you read it, and you spend time on it. Boom, you've just thrown off all of your Google data, because now every day you're an additional visitor on there. You have greatly increased the amount of time spent on your website, so that is unrealistic. The pages per visit, you've also increased that. You've lowered your bounce rate and percent of new visits, well, or returning visits, you've also screwed that up too. So you can actually use filters to exclude your IP address, or the IP addresses that you would be using from home and perhaps at work. So companies can also do this as well. If you ran a corporate website and you regularly had, say, your CSR, your customer service relations people, going through your web store just to verify pricing or order things for clients, they're going to mess things up. So you can actually block off all traffic from your company. Pretty great. And also likewise traffic coming from domains and subdirectories. So let's do a walkthrough of Google Analytics and take a look at some of the powerful tools that are packed inside this program. So I've queued up one of my sites from a while back. Best music ever done. This was a failed venture, and in fact, I largely discovered this thanks to the analytics, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So we've got some historical dates here: October 13th, 2010 to April 14th, 2011. 12K visits, over 11K unique visitors, covering 18.7K page views. 1 minute average on site, 1.49 pages a visit, and bounce rates, not bad, a little high. And then lots of new visits, and not so many returning visits. Aha, information. All right, so let's dive in. What we're looking at right now is the dashboard of Google Analytics, and we're under the standard reporting tab, not the custom reporting tab. Okay, so here we have the good old overview graph, mapped out by day, mapping each of these days in this period. And if we hover over it, we figure out exactly how much traffic came in. And look, hey, look, geez, marketing efforts paying off. Nice, not bad, not bad, not bad. Gets better, gets way better. And then there comes a realization, and I say, hey, you know what? Can't keep doing this website. It's not worth it. We are severely going to be crippled in growth. And the project is abandoned, and it just carries through at about this rate for infinity of virtually nothing. So actually, this may be a good time of talking about why we decided to abandon it. Well, first of all, me being myself and a partner, although I was in charge of marketing, so it was overwhelmingly my decision. There were two key problems that we had. First of all, this is too low over this kind of time period. People weren't coming back, and that's not good. And then the other reason was if you were to actually go to the website, or we will get to the traffic sources tab, you will look at our SEO. Even though SEO was done great, we had a really hard time bringing traffic to the website through search engines. And the reason being was because it was about the best music ever, where we would label a band and then a song by the band or an album. And guess what? Those kind of terms are incredibly hard to rank for unless it's a new and upcoming band. But that wasn't the orientation of the website. It was about the best songs ever. Good luck getting ranked #1 for a U2 song, for instance, in Google. And so we were looking at the effort that we're putting into it versus the kind of results. So for instance, we could fix this. This can just be fixed with better design, more content, boosting subscriber benefits to people who decide to subscribe by RSS or email. There are tricks to increasing that. However, we couldn't fix the SEO, and without SEO, a content-based website is largely sunk. So we just decided to abandon the project and move on to more profitable things. But it did leave us with a good amount of data that we can make useful for this course. So again, this is our dashboard. The languages of people coming to the website, mostly English. I wonder why that should be high. Maybe it just wasn't listed. And then we can boil down by demographics, systems, and mobile. We will look into that over here in this panel. So this is where we get into more of the advanced information. If we click on demographics, we can do things by location. Go. And we're presented with a map of where all of our traffic came. Hey, most of it came from America. That's what we wanted. That's great. Some from Canada, also good, since I and my partner, we were both from Canada. A decent spread into Australia, over Europe, and then pretty much everything else being even across the globe. Here we can boil it down a little bit more. Top 3, United States, UK, and Canada, and then some of our European countries, Mexico, and Australia, obviously being accepted from that. And it boils down just to more information. So visits, page visits, average time on site, new visits, and bounce rate mapped out by country. And see, this is something that's interesting. People in Canada stayed longer. People in Italy stayed much longer. That's kind of cool. People in the UK left. Well, come to think of it, we didn't have a lot of UK music, so that's something to keep in mind. Same thing for language, custom variables, and user-defined, none of which will be set. Here we get into behavior, new versus returning. We're just going to keep going through these pages just to show you a little bit about the tool. So maps it out nicely, new visit, frequency, and recency. Overall engagement, which would be how long they actually stayed on the website, and maps that out by percentages of totals. So a lot of people came and then left really quick. Bad, not good, not good. There were obvious problems with the site design beyond just strategy. Browser and OS. A lot of Firefox, a lot of Chrome. Actually, it's a surprising amount of Chrome for that time. I guess we were targeting a younger demographic. And various networks, which for most sites are not going to be critically important. This is our social engagement panel and mobile overview. Here's a new feature which I absolutely love, visitor flow. God, this thing is awesome. So we can boil things down to, we're actually going to do traffic source. And traffic type. which is usually a little more valuable than the country. Okay, so where did all of our stuff come from? Okay, so think back to the total amount of visits that we had, and look, hey, most of it came to this stuff, this page, the third twin. This was when we discovered that if we had promoted the site more in terms of young new bands that were becoming popular as opposed to older well-established bands, we could get more traffic. This was the big notice for us here, and so we migrated the third twin. Sucker Punch was a movie just coming out at the time. D Pride was a new guy. Avantasia was a relatively unknown band in North America that was, I guess, decently popular in Europe. We began to figure things out, but let's take a look at this, because these metrics are not good. You see all this red here? Leaving the website. Look how much of this, like, yeah, 69.8 of total traffic left on this website. 8.79k of 9.09k left on this page. That is poor site design straight up. That kind of bleed, that's why the site wasn't successful, beyond everything else that we've already talked about. And that's coming from organic search. That's targeted people coming to the website and then bailing immediately. That's not good. That's not good design. Homepage, 1.3k of 1.62. Not good. Sucker Punch, even worse. Okay, so there were obvious problems with the content on this website, and by using this flow analysis, we can actually go through very nicely and determine exactly what those problems are. The advertising tab, if you're running AdWords, it syncs up that information there. Traffic sources overview. Percent of search traffic, percent of referral traffic, direct traffic coming to your website. That's when someone types in www.yourdomain directly into their browser, and percent coming from various campaigns. So, page 1, all traffic, analysis of direct traffic and how it comes in. And see, this is what I'm talking about. As a marketer, this really is just critical. Referrals, by the way, links to your website, people coming by clicking through links. All the information you could want from search, including popular phrases. So basically everything, the third twin and Sucker Punch, some from Best Music Ever. That's a hard term to rank for, but we did okay. Our campaigns through our feed. And finally, content, where we can boil down. And this is actually a really cool section. We're not going to go too in depth, but we really could go far in. This allows you to boil down to your content specifically on your website and determine exactly what's going on here. So let's do pages. Done. So here's specific pages, what's happening on them. It allows us to get a little more information than the graphical view that we saw earlier when we were looking at the flow analysis. So, content drill down tells us a little bit more about all of our content and allows us to go way more in depth. Our landing pages, our exit pages, our site speed, that's important. Site search is something we're going to cover in just a few minutes. That allows you to analyze the search in your site if you have such a thing implemented. And we're going to talk about why you would want to do that. Certain events, AdSense, and then in-page analytics. So this is going to be the site. Here it is. Not too terribly pretty. Well, we're going to give it a second, and boom. Okay, so this tells us where everybody clicked and what was worth doing on our home page. So home was the most popular choice. 6.7% to about, 2% to connect and send us email, and then a whole bunch came in over here. This was one of the ways that we generated money, and 1.2% came over to our Facebook. Some people like this, which is why you include the best of your site. And here's something cool. Remember when I was telling you about the fold in previous parts of the course? That is what you can see when you first load the page. Well, this would be pretty typical for a lot of people. 25% clicks below, which means that 75%, sorry, whew, little brain freeze there, 75% of all the clicks happened in what you see right here. Now, when it comes to installing Google AdSense, one of the things that I recommended was that you have at least 2 ads, and we never even bothered optimizing this site. Clearly, something that I was doing very early on when figuring this internet stuff out. But this is why. You would want to have 2 ads above the fold to maximize your chance for those 75% of the clicks. Pretty cool, right? And that is Google Analytics, the standard reporting in a nutshell. So there is tons and tons and tons of stuff in here, far more than the average marketer will probably ever need to go through, but it can definitely help you out a lot. In fact, it can help you out absolutely incredible amounts, the amount of things that you can learn from analytics. So for us, it was choosing to abandon this project. Great. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. If you're going to be running a business and it's not successful, it's better to get out than stay embroiled in that fight. And in fact, getting out of this, and then I chose to move on to far more lucrative ventures afterwards, ended up being the greatest thing, and learned a lot as I went. So that would be Google Analytics in a nutshell. Close that tab. And let us continue forward with our course. Well, I just hit the wrong button. Clicky. Clicky is a Google Analytics alternative. It's well known as a real-time analytics company. And this is something that Google Analytics has traditionally lagged in. A few years ago, they would only update their tracking data about every 24 hours. It was actually fairly terrible, which means that all the data in your site would only update every 24 hours, which means that if you wanted to do something like map out a product launch or pay attention to how social campaigns were impacting your site, you basically couldn't do that live or with any degree of recency. They've since updated it. So for the last little bit, it's been all about more frequent updates a day. It's not been real time, but it's been much better. And they have just begun real-time beta because there's such a demand for it. When it comes to day-to-day stuff, like if you're a corporation, a sizable company, or a content-based website, you don't really need real-time data. But if you have a big launch going on, real-time data can kind of save you. For instance, if you're launching a product, it's really hard to test landing pages in advance of launching that actual product. You can, test templates, but otherwise it's difficult. With real-time reporting, you can test multiple ones against each other within a few minutes and then instantly pick the one that performs best. So it's definitely handy for those times when you need it to be in real time. It's good for mapping out social campaigns as well, as I said, but so that is why Clicky became established, rather. It's because they focused on real time, whereas Google Analytics focused on a robust package. Now that Google Analytics is moving into real time, well, I think you probably know where my opinion of which service lies, but we're going to get to that in the next slide, I believe. Clicky is, or in the next couple slides, Clicky is limited to sites receiving less than 1 million daily page views, which is an insane amount. So most sites will be eligible to use the service. Setting up Clicky, it's very, very similar to Google Analytics. You create an account, you implement information on your website, and like Google Analytics, you can install plugins through, say, WordPress or Drupal, which allow for ease of installation. And I highly recommend that. It makes a job that could take hours turn into a job that takes a couple of minutes. I mean, it really does make a big difference. This is what the Clicky dashboard looks like. Much simpler than Google Analytics overall. Like I said, their claim to fame was in real time, and that's why which one should you use? Both are great. But now that Google Analytics is supporting real-time data, there's not so much reason to go with Clicky, since Google Analytics just has such a robust package. And you can see, don't get me wrong, Clicky has a lot to it. One nice feature they have is the big screen, and the big screen allows you to, say, if you had a projector, you could map real-time data to your company's conference room or to a TV in the front panel and the entryway to your office. The cool features like that would just show people what's up. you could have that TV live across, say, the web developer's office. Maybe in every few offices you could map one. Just ideas. That's a nice feature, but other than that, really, it's pretty simple in comparison to Google Analytics, and it's not really quite as nice. Internal site search is something that we covered. We looked at where it was in Google Analytics. The reason you would want to use site search or internal site search is to figure out what your audience is looking for when they come to your website. So what if you don't have what they're looking for? Well, because you are looking at these analytics, you know what they're looking for, you can provide it. Now, what if these pages identify as being high bounce pages? People come to your website, they get the information they need, and then they leave. Well, we've discussed an example previous to this, but here's the thing. Throwing ads on a website should be a last-ditch effort. When nothing else is looking right, if you've tried everything else, there's nothing you can do, throw ads on it. But if these pages identify as being high bounce pages, it could be because it either A, doesn't have the information they need, or B, it gives them all of the information they need, and then they leave. So why don't you try, one of the things that you could try is subtracting a little bit of information, drawing it across multiple pages, and then using those multiple pages to drip in information about your services and the kind of offers that you have. Try that out. Try that out. And again, we come to these decisions because you wouldn't just decide to do this for every article on your webpage. That would be crazy. You would probably end up killing conversions for high converting pages, and while maybe bringing up pages on other ones, and you wouldn't know what's going on. You have to look at the data. That is why we use analytics packages. Boom. Multi-channel integration. Multi-channel analytics involves analyzing data across TV, telephones, internet, mobile phones, and retail outlets. We're looking at tons of data. How do you even begin to analyze all of this? First of all, you have to use an advanced program, something like Adobe Omniture. You have to. Otherwise, you just cannot keep up with all the information. It's just impossible. But these services do exist if you're a firm that's interested in that. And 2 new paid tools for you, Optimizely and Visual Website Optimizer. This is Optimizely. This is landing page. So just basic A/B testing. Good amount of reputable companies using it. And this is Visual Website Optimizer. So they're just basically ways to help you analyze your data, but they are a little bit pricey if you were to click on their pricing tab. Both companies are a bit pricey, and keep in mind, Google Website Optimizer is a free alternative. It's always there. So that will wrap up this part of the course. We're 40 minutes in. I think that's a great time to end it up, or to end it on. I'll be back for the last part very shortly.